This is episode 3, in a series of 5 episodes designed to raise critical consciousness of some of the possible economic, social, and political factors that can influence our well-being in the UK. In the last episode, we discussed economic issues, particularly relating to poverty and inequality, and the impact that these can have on our mental health and well-being. Following on from this episode will focus on issues relating to business and politics, specifically the potential ways in which systems like capitalism and neoliberalism have created conditions in society that affect our well-being at a larger, external, society-wide scale, which could provide a potential explanation as to why, according to the Mental Health Foundation survey, almost 3/4 of the population reported experiencing overwhelming stress in the last year. Going back to Brothenbrenner's ecological model, it was suggested that there are large, overarching structures and patterns of ideas or norms in society referred to as macro systems. These provide the context for the subsystems, meso and micro, that are held within, such as the workplace, family, and individual. Capitalism is one example of a macro system that influences our society. Capitalism is an economic system in which the means of production, the physical resources used to produce goods, and therefore profits, are privately owned. Essentially, what this means is that the owners reap the financial rewards for something their employees have worked to produce, and in return, these employees are paid a wage that is proportionately less than the profits that the owners receive. Such a description highlights the potentially exploitative nature of capitalism. In the UK, you only have to look at recent figures to see this in action. Research from this year has reported that by the first 3 days in 2019, the top bosses in the UK had already earned more than the average worker's yearly salary of £29,574 in what was termed Fat Cat Friday, or just January the 4th for you and I. This evidence echoes some of the economic inequality mentioned in the previous episode. The research further revealed that these top executives now earn 133 times that of the average worker's salary and have seen an 11% increase in pay packets since the last year. Of course, a similar raise has not been seen in the typical worker's pay. This begs the question, are top bosses worth this wage? What have they done? What skills do they have? And how are they that much better than the average worker? Critics suggest that we have been convinced and taught to believe that these large salaries that come with executive jobs are warranted due to immense hard work, dedication, and innovation of top bosses. But with the wage gap now as large as it is, it's difficult to justify this difference based purely on hard graft, rather than simply an example of growing inequality. It's likely, of course, that this evidence described here will sound familiar, as capitalism is the dominant cultural and economic system in the world, and has been around for the last 400 or 500 years. So you or I don't know a time before it, or arguably any different. We are at a point now, in the UK, of what has been termed advanced capitalism, which describes societies where capitalism has been present and developed over a long period of time, that it is ingrained within our society. As Brothenbrenner said, these macro systems are large structures of ideas that provide us with context and norms in society. In advanced capitalist societies then, it is argued that value is placed on self-interest, competition, financial success, and consumption. These individualistic and materialistic values are adopted in our culture, which act to normalise capitalism, meaning that the arguably exploitative conditions that capitalism breeds are accepted as a normal feature of our contemporary society. As expected, the effects of this are felt most at work. For instance, reduced or frozen wages, 0-hour contracts, redundancies, and people being replaced with technology are all common aspects of our capitalist society, all in a strive for greater profits, as profits are valued over people. These precarious working conditions have been said to negatively impact employees' well-being, and there's evidence to support this claim. For example, in a review of 57 longitudinal studies, it was reported that there is a causal relationship in which job insecurity influences both health and well-being over time. These studies included measures like general psychological well-being, such as anxiety and depression, as well as work-related well-being, like burnout or mental and emotional exhaustion. The results also suggested that somatic, physical and bodily health was also negatively influenced by job insecurity. This included dizziness, headaches, muscle tension, increased blood pressure, and even the likelihood of heart disease. Finally, the paper concluded that job insecurity is a cause for poorer mental and physical health, rather than the other way around. The evidence from this review therefore suggests that work-related conditions, or stressors, that are produced as a result of aspects of our capitalist system have a negative influence on our well-being. Some would argue that this situation is getting worse, as the current phase of capitalism that we're in is referred to as neoliberal or neoliberalism. Essentially, neoliberalism is a political development of capitalism that is associated with privatisation, which refers to the movement of goods and services from the public or state-owned sector to the private, as well as individualism, a focus on personal goals and successes over a concern for others or the environment. What this emphasis on the individual means for us is that if you succeed within the system, it was all down to you and your hard work. Therefore, you should be rewarded for your efforts. But if you don't achieve, then you have made bad choices in life. It is entirely your fault, and you should have to live with these consequences. This indoctrinated belief coincides with the idea of equal opportunity, that we all start on a level playing field, which ignores any possible benefits such as inherited wealth, educational opportunities, and health inequalities, i.e. structural factors that could see some people get ahead. This of course suits those 6, 7 and 8-figure top executives that we mentioned earlier. In practice, neoliberalism echoes capitalist values of cost efficiency, where people and services are reduced simply to economic costs and benefits. This often results in policy like austerity, which involves cuts to public spending aimed to reduce government expenditure. The effect that this has is services become more stretched and strained as a result of job losses, longer hours, and larger workloads. The outcome of such policy has often been linked to negative well-being effects, and it's been suggested that the austerity measures put in place in the UK since 2010 are related to the increases in mental health problems since this time. For example, in a 2017 Unison survey, 92% of staff reported too much pressure at work, attributing this to high work demands and longer working hours as a result of staff cuts. This stress is particularly apt among NHS staff. With a report by the Care Quality Commission, the regulators for health and social care in England, explaining that the NHS is at full stretch, it's not surprising that staff are experiencing particularly high levels of stress. To put this into numbers, in 2018, it was estimated that over 325,000 days were lost due to stress among NHS staff. This was an increase of over 30% in the last 5 years, equating to almost 100,000 more days off due to stress. Such figures suggest the effect that the contemporary working conditions resulting from neoliberal capitalist policy can have on staff well-being. Ironically, in an attempt to help deal with these high levels of stress, NHS staff are offered mindfulness and resilience courses to help them better cope with their situations. Although these could be helpful in treating some of the symptoms of staff distress, as we mentioned in episode 1 with the swamp analogy, this individual focus individualises the problem and therefore does not challenge or transform the wider causes of their stress in the first place. As the leader of the campaign group, Every Doctor, Dr. Julia Patterson put it, "I don't think there's enough in the way of initiatives to help tackle the root cause of the problems, which is underfunding and understaffing. Instead, the current treatment is co-opted or aligned to capitalist neoliberal values of individual responsibility and self-improvement, rather than the larger external macro factors that could also be influencing staff well-being." Overall then, the evidence has suggested that these macro systems, namely capitalism and neoliberalism, have created contemporary factors that could be seen to have a negative effect on our health and well-being in the UK. The next episode will focus on the potential ways in which the media could influence our well-being.